Welcome to Harpod, a talk that brings harmonies to get you through the day. It's available in Spotify and our official Instagram at BMFK UBAYA. Here's a portal to another medical universe.
Hello, Harpod friends, and good morning. My name is Sarah, and I'll be your host for today's episode of Harpod, brought to you by BMFK UBAYA. Today, we have a very special episode with the topic of being active and productive in our youth. Our guest for today is the very lovely Kate Rossie. Hello, Kate, and welcome to our podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Today, we'll be talking about a lot of topics, and they're going to be very interesting. But before that, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, maybe a little bit nervous, but I think it's okay.
Sorry, me too.
Yes, so you've been in Indonesia for how long?
2 months now, just at the end.
2 months. So how has it been?
Oh, it's been absolutely fantastic. Everyone I found in Indonesia is just so kind and so helpful to like another level. So it's been amazing.
That's awesome. That's great. And maybe we can start with a brief introduction, maybe who you are and how has the past few days been and what brings you to Indonesia?
I'm doing great. So I'm Kate Rossie. I'm originally from England, but I'm currently studying my master's in global health with the University of Maastricht. And I'm really lucky that this course has brought me to Indonesia and to Surabaya through my thesis placement. And I've been visiting around Surabaya for the last few days with the Faculty of Medicine, who's been very kindly hosting me. And I've been able to see some really, really amazing events and things here, so I've been very lucky.
Wow, so you are a medical student, a global health student, and now you're very far from your original place of study, and now you're all here in Indonesia. So in UBAYA itself, you've been to many places, huh? And one of them is the community project in UTC, if I'm not mistaken. So how was it back then?
Yeah, that's been really great. So I didn't even know what an outdoor campus was before we got there, but it's been really fantastic. So I got to see the community outreach projects, which is completely different to anything we've done in the UK through my medical school. Yeah, and especially I was linked with the group that was doing a workshop on stunting in children, and they were really, really great. Had a hands-on project making bento boxes and let me get involved. So it was really, really impressive. And I got to see and hear about the other two projects as well. Well, one also about stunting and another one about teenage anemia.
Oh, teenage anemia.
Yeah. So they were all really interesting, and the students went so far out of their way to make me feel welcome and explain things to me in English, which I really appreciate.
Wow, that must have been very fun and interesting. And you've also been to UTC, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, yeah, that's where the community outreach projects are happening. So I stayed there for a few days, and we got to explore the area, and also go to the museum there. If you haven't been, it was really fascinating.
Oh wow! And the air in UTC, I've been there once, and it's very fresh, if I'm not mistaken, like compared to the campus air with buildings. And
yeah,
you explored a lot of places so far, huh?
Yeah, it was so beautiful. They even showed me the pharmacology herb garden that has like the natural remedies, which again is something completely new for me.
Oh yes.
I also found it so funny. The students kept warning me like how cold it would be up there.
Yeah, compared to this Surabaya's heat over here. Wow. And in UBAYA itself, you've been to our anatomy lab, haven't you? And you've seen and used the VR gadget, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I went yesterday, and it was again so cool. I've never used VR before, let alone thought about using it for anatomy. So I think it's such like an innovative way to teach, especially during COVID as well. So it was such a new and cool thing for me, and I was so worried I'd forgotten my anatomy, but it hung on just about.
That's great. Yes, technology is really advancing these days. So I see. And you've met a lot of our students, and did they speak Indonesian to you or English? How was the experience?
It's been great. I mean, if they spoke Indonesian to me, I would struggle to understand it, I have to admit. I haven't got very far with that, but everyone's English has been fantastic, and I really appreciate the effort it takes to speak in English, especially. I think it can be quite intimidating as well. So I really do appreciate and am thankful for the effort of people speaking English to me.
Don't worry. I think after this we can teach you some Indonesian and maybe some Bahasa Jawa.
I would love that.
Okay. So you've come here from, it's pretty far, huh? From Europe, and now you're in Asia, you're in Indonesia, in Surabaya. And as a medical student, doctors especially, they're known as lifelong learners. And from your educational history, it's nothing short of interesting. Currently, you are conducting research, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm doing my master's thesis with UBAYA at the moment.
Oh, master's thesis. So for your current status, are you a student or a researcher, or maybe you can elaborate more on your education?
Yeah, so currently I would say student researcher, a bit of both. But my educational background is, so I began in 2017 at the University of Leicester Medical School. So I've done 4 years of medical training there, so I understand it's a little bit different than how things are run here. We have 2 years of preclinical teaching, and then I've also completed 2 years of clinical teaching now and rotations. And then we have something called intercalation in the UK, where you can take a pause after your 3rd or 4th year. So for me, I took a pause after my 4th year on my medical degree, and I'm now pursuing a master's degree. And I chose to do that through the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands. So with them, I'm doing my global health degree in 1 year, hopefully.
Hopefully.
So with them, yeah, I studied in Maastricht in the Netherlands from September to December. And then through this program, they also have an elective track you can take to do a course somewhere else in the world, because they're very, very big on international collaboration. So I chose to do from January till March or April with Thammasat University in Bangkok. And with them, I was studying about human rights.
Human rights.
And then I was lucky enough to come to beautiful Indonesia after that, and have been doing my master's thesis online whilst backpacking around Bali. And now I'm here.
Wow, you sound like you've been through a sort of adventure. You started from as a medical student in the University of Leicester in the UK, and then you've delved into global health in Maastricht University in the Netherlands, and then human rights in Bangkok, Thailand, and now you're here. You're in Surabaya conducting research, and wow, that is very interesting, and probably not the traditional path, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I don't think it's the most traditional path, and I think hopefully it will become more traditional, because I think it's got so much value in it. It's really great, if a bit tricky, but fantastic overall, yeah.
Wow, and you have a lot of experience then abroad, outside of UK. You've been to Thailand, you've been to the Netherlands, now Indonesia. Do you think there are some benefits to studying abroad, and maybe something you wouldn't have gotten if you've just stayed in the UK?
Oh, so many things, I think. I think especially for me, one of my main motivations to leave Leicester rather than staying and doing my intercalation there was, I think I was just so comfortable. Like after 4 years, I think you make yourself this almost little nest in your life where everything is comfortable, familiar, and I have, really amazing friends, a really amazing boyfriend, and like family, and a social life in Leicester that I was actually devastated to leave, but I felt like I wasn't pushing myself anymore. And as soon as you go somewhere new and you have to speak to new people and experience new things and get lost, miss your train, and just learn other people's perspectives as well, I think you just feel so much more developed as a person. I feel a lot more grown up after this year.
Wow. And especially since you're a medical student on track to become a doctor, and how do you think all these experiences will help you in the future as a doctor, or maybe what you pursue in the future?
I think in 2 ways it will really help. I think, first of all, I think I would be graduating right now and I would be a doctor if I hadn't taken my year out, and I think I wasn't mentally ready for that. I think it's a lot of responsibility, and it's like almost a huge identity change from you spend 5 years, or I don't know, 15 years probably in my case, idolizing this idea of being a doctor, and you work towards it so long that I really wanted to feel prepared, and it feels so grown up, and I'm 22, I don't feel grown up enough. So I think you do this year abroad and you have to manage so many things on your own and overcome things like moving to a new city and having to make new friends, or getting stuck, or your visa not working or your plane getting delayed, and you don't have your safety net or comfort zone to sort you out. So you learn that you're a lot more self-sufficient than you realized you were. And I think that's something you can bring to being a doctor as well. I think it's like a level of confidence that you can have in yourself that will make you more calm and then actually make better decisions as well.
Wow. I think you've maybe grown a lot as a person through this journey, and in the future when you'll be a doctor, I'm sure you'll be a great one. Wow. And earlier you've mentioned about your research. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on the research you're doing in Indonesia and why you've chosen to dive into this field of research and what the topic is.
Yeah. So I've been very lucky to be placed with the University of Surabaya to do my master's thesis. So my thesis is ethical dilemmas in COVID-19 and decision making in healthcare workers. So basically the gist of what we're doing is we're trying to look into how healthcare workers, so doctors, nurses, or any other healthcare workers, made these really, really tough decisions during COVID, especially when there's periods of resource scarcity. So when especially during Delta, which was the worst wave in Indonesia, when there was a shortage of ventilators, when there was a shortage of beds, or when there was a shortage of healthcare workers, how did they decide this person gets this ventilator and this person doesn't? And I think the real importance behind this study is not only to understand, why they did things or what people did, is to understand the values behind them and whether the ethical values that we have now are appropriate to apply. And the hope is that after the study, the more we understand why people make these decisions and whether the current ethical values are needed and are applicable to our situation, is that we can help make these decisions easier for people. Because this period of time, COVID, put a tremendous strain on healthcare workers, emotionally, physically, everything. And I think also making these really hard decisions has a huge burden on people. And from the interviews we've done so far, you can see that it stays with a lot of people. And if we can do anything to make that easier, the healthcare workers have already worked so hard, then I think that's a really excellent goal to have.
Wow. Even in your field of study, there is a degree of such benevolence, and that's very impressive, especially in this day and age. And maybe even you've mentioned earlier that your research is related to COVID, and I've heard that you have a lot of extracurricular experience, and one of them is related to COVID.
Yeah, so you did ask the reason I chose this study. So it was in two parts, and I think a lot of people don't want to admit one of the parts is, I wanted to travel, I wanted to see the world, I wanted to experience other cultures, so I didn't want to choose something in Maastricht where I'd already been, or England. So, a small part of it, maybe 5%, was, this is in Indonesia, I've never been there, I've never been near there, I would love to experience that. But the other 95% was because I'm so interested in COVID. So in England, when COVID struck and became really bad, our medical school cancelled classes, which was unprecedented and really strange, and we were told to go home. But a few days later, we got an email asking if anyone would be willing to work. And the thought of me spending 3 months in my tiny little village in England with my parents just made me feel so claustrophobic. And I've never been one to be too afraid of things, so I signed up to work and moved back to Leicester from Oxford and lived in my 6-bedroom house alone and worked on a geriatric COVID ward for 3 to 4 months, I think. Yeah, but it was honestly one of the best experiences in my life, which is a really strange thing to say, but I feel like I got so much value from working on the COVID ward, from the teaching, from, feeling like I was making a difference. And, there was the things that have stuck with me in my mind about it is I remember clapping, everyone lines the hallways and all the workers clap every time someone gets discharged from our ward. Wow. There were very unfortunate cases, but the things that you remember is, the things that were positive and that you did to make a difference, and that maybe if you weren't there might not have happened. So yeah, that was one of my experiences. Yeah. Wow.
And even as a doctor, that's one of our goals, isn't it, to make a difference? And that has greatly influenced your field of research, which is ethical dilemmas, because you probably have faced a lot of those in your time working in the clinic. Wow. And speaking of extracurricular activities, you've also been involved in student organizations, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you can share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm really into, I don't know, having a huge work-life balance. Like, I think it's incredibly important as medical students. We can get so sucked into our work, and especially that medicine never ends. There's never an end to the textbook. There's never an end to how much you can learn. So I think it's really nice to have a work-life balance, and our medical school has a talk or a course very early on about looking after yourself and managing it. So yeah, they have a lot of student organisations. So the overarching student organisation for medical students at the University of Leicester is called Narasumber. And underneath them there's like a whole branch of things. So I really like sports and activity. So I joined the University of Leicester Medical School netball team. I'm not sure, do you have netball in Indonesia?
Not at all. Wow, we have an athlete over here.
Yeah, so I joined them in my first year and I just fell in love with it. It's such a nice community of girls, and you have socials, you have training, you have matches, and it's just so much fun. So I joined them in my first year. I think I was vice captain my second year, captain my third year, and tour sec my fourth year.
Wow, you must have a lot of experience.
The team is so fantastic. It runs itself mostly. It's very fun. So I was very proud to be the captain of that ship. I also played for the hockey team, which again has a really great sense of community in it and is so much fun. I was one of the organisers of the ski trip 1 year as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to get involved and do different things outside of medicine, which was really great.
Yes, and that's very important for a doctor, because as a doctor, we don't only focus on the theories, on the books, but we need to learn interpersonal relationships and skills outside of our learning. And that is very interesting that you've chosen to take part inside of these activities outside of medicine. And even in our medicine faculty in UBAYA, we also have activities such as yours, which is we have KMM, which stands for Kelompok Minat Mahasiswa, which is an organization focused on the interests of the students. We have sports, we have arts and crafts too, and for sports itself, we don't have netball, but we have basketball, soccer, we have volleyball and such. And it's interesting that even you would take part in it, and maybe we'd like to encourage more of our students to also take part in it. And I'm sure you've learned a lot from your experience as captain, as an organizer, and even in UBAYA we have organizations that organize programs, we have organizations that focus more on the legislative side of things, and yes, this is like its own microcosm of a community, and we all support each other, and that's very interesting to learn. Maybe you'd like to share what you've learned from those sports. I'm sure it's not only physical acts that you've learned, but also about the leading, the teamwork, maybe.
Yeah, so I think you're definitely right. I think it's not just like, oh, I'm getting better at this sport, especially medic sports for us. You don't have to be on a high level, and I assume it's probably the same as you. Like, I think a lot of girls actually joined the team not knowing how to play netball, or they were terrible at it at school, but they wanted to just come and try it. And actually, I think you find that the netball is probably the least important thing. We have so many other things we do, like charity fundraising and all those other things. I think the best thing any of them would say they ever did was just giving it a go. So I think that's really, really nice. And if I could encourage any students to just try a sport, even if you're terrible at it. Like, I'm terrible at hockey. I've never played one match in 4 years, but I love the team to bits.
Wow, you've heard it here, guys. Please join organizations to develop your skills. Even though you might not be the best at it, you can always learn and you can always improve yourself. Wow, I see. And from all your stories, from all your experiences, you're truly an inspiration, and you inspire us to take paths that we haven't taken, and that everyone has their own path to take. You don't have to follow the traditional ways, and you don't have to be like everybody else, because in the end, you're just where you need to be, because you can always trust in yourself to get through things. But maybe I'd like to ask, what is your inspiration, and what drives you, and what challenges you to keep on challenging yourself and keep on moving forward?
That's such a tough question. What inspires me? I don't know. I think I really don't want to spend my life doing something that I don't enjoy. Like I said, like the work-life balance, and I just, if I want to do something, I don't see a reason why, if it's not feasible, that I can't do it. I really don't want to dedicate my life to, I don't know, a specialty that I don't enjoy, or I can't think of much else. But I want to live my life for the things I like. Like I don't want to just go about it on autopilot. So I think it's probably a very selfish inspiration, really. I just want to do things that seem cool and I like, and just really try and do things whilst I'm young. I don't know, 22, I still feel so young. So I just want to do cool things and enjoy them. And I think it's the more things I do, the more things I want to do. Every time I try anything, even if it goes terribly or I have the worst time, you still have this like kind of adrenaline rush, or like a buzz of, oh my god, I tried that, I did it, it wasn't as bad as I built up to in my head. And then you think, oh, okay, I can try it again, or try something new, or the worst thing that will happen is that I'll fail, and then it's funny, and then I'll move on. So
Yes, and it'll be a story for another day.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the surfing the first time went terribly. By the fourth time, less terribly.
Less terribly. Wow, that is very inspirational. And I disagree about the being selfish part. I think you're just honest with yourself, and I think that's a good trait for a doctor to have. Wow, and I think you have a lot of lists. You have a lot of things on your roster, on your list. How do you manage your own time for you to be here and keep your sanity?
I think everyone who knows me would just say, like, organization is absolutely my key. Like I've color coding is very close to my heart. I'm very specific about it, and always have been. I think it's just, for me, if things aren't lined up and I know exactly what's going on, I'll feel very anxious. And my mum would always do it with me when I was younger, like GCSEs, which are the exams we take when we're 16, or our A-levels, which is what we take at 18 to get into university. I was a mess. I wanted to get into medical school. It's very competitive. But every time I get stressed, my mum would like sit me down and she'd be like, okay, let's write a list. And then we would go through the list. And by the time you've written the list and she's like, what can we achieve today? Okay, we're just going to do that. So I think a lot of my life is just, I hear my mum's voice sat on my shoulder, almost like the little devil, angel, whichever one. Make your own judgment. Sorry, mum. It's just there going, make a list. What can you do today? Do it. So I have a lot of organization, a lot of color coding, and then a lot of calling my mum stressed out, and then she fixes it.
Wow, you must have a very good support system then. Do you think that's important in life?
Yeah, definitely. I think all of the things I've done have been 100% made possible by the amount of support I have. My parents are fantastically supportive and always have been. They've raised two very competitive children, actually, but in a very in a very nice way. I think we just, they always said, we don't care what you do, but whatever you do, you've got to do your best at it. So whether that's academics, whether we go to university, whether we pick a trade, or whether it's something completely different, arts, not that anyone in my family is artistic, but their point was, whatever you do, you just have to try and do it to the best of your ability, and then you leave that all there, and then that's it. So I think that's really the way it works in my head, at least.
Yes, and I think I can see that through you and through all your experiences and all the activities you've taken. You've definitely exemplified what your mom has taught you. Wow, and maybe would you like to maybe send a message to the future doctors, to the future medical students, or maybe people who want to stray from the traditional path, or maybe want to become like you?
Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to say to them, maybe?
Okay, so I guess I would just say, if you're torn between will I do it or will I not do it, just run, jump off the cliff, and then deal with it whilst you're falling. That's always my thought. And everything I did this year, I applied for this year, and then I thought, okay, it's too late now. I'm already on the path, and then I just did it. And I think, if there's no reason why you wouldn't do it or why you can't do it, just do it. I think most people regret the things that they don't do. So, and if it's terrifying, it probably means you're on the right path. I've been scared for 6 months straight now, and it's been great. So yeah, and if you ever need any help, message me. I'll help.
Wow, you heard it right here. You can just message Miss Kate Rossie. Wow. And okay, I have one last question for you, which is choose one. The era changes you, or you change the era?
I don't know if this is the right answer, but I think the era changes you, but I think it's like an adaptability thing, because I think there's so many, like the VR headsets, you know, you can't change the era. Technology is coming, things are changing, but you can still make the most of it.
Yes, and you can adapt. And I think you've had a great degree of that, especially since you've been in many countries, you've had a lot of experiences, and even as a medical student, it must have took a lot of time and decision making to get to the decision of wanting to pursue a master's. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I was quite impulsive actually. I think once I got the idea into my head, I was like, I'm going to do it. For me, I think in my head, most decisions, and I'm quite an indecisive person, are do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? Pros, cons. And then once I make a decision, I'm set. But, I think, yeah.
Wow, and I'd just like to say my thanks that you were willing to be part of our podcast and willing to share all these experiences and what you've learned and what you felt to our audience. And hopefully throughout this journey, you'll have a safe journey, and you discover more about yourself, and you'll be at the point that you're happy with yourself. And as future doctors, I hope you become a great doctor. And however, I don't think I'm worried about it. I think I can already see that you have the adaptability you need. You have the spontaneity, because in this world, there's probably a lot of things that doctors have to face that they wouldn't prepare for. And I think that's very important too. So thank you for wanting to be a part of this podcast, and I hope this journey treats you well. So thank you, Kate. Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you so much. It was really an honor to be on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to thank the Harpod watchers for tuning in, and see you next time on our next podcast.